I grew up in a Christian home. My dad was a pastor my entire life. So I was raised in a good, godly home. I knew God personally. I had a relationship with him, taught about God. I went to a private school, Christian private school. It was a smaller private school, so everybody knew everything about everybody. They knew that my dad was a pastor. I started feeling that I was being held to a different standard, and I was never meeting that standard. So I started not caring. So I started getting a chip on my shoulder, and I started getting an attitude. 17, 18 years old, I got expelled from school, and that's pretty much when everything got started. I had an opportunity to become who I wanted to be at this public school, and I just started spiraling down. Got into drinking pretty heavily. After I graduated high school, I got into drugs, and we started buying and selling drugs. It was just a crazy time in my life. Got held at gunpoint a couple times. Never made it to jail, but I come about a block away. They pulled me over and I had open containers. I was drunk. I was high. Had all kinds of drugs on me. They found enough stuff to take me away for a long, long time. I was in the back of the cop car in handcuffs. All of a sudden the cop slammed his brakes on, pulled me out of the car, threw my cell phone at me, threw my wallet at me, and as fast as he stopped, he was gone. There I was sitting in the middle of the intersection. So I called my buddies up and continued partying. Thought that was a joke. That was pretty sweet. That was pretty crazy, you know. Fast forward a little bit till I was maybe 23, 24 years old. Ended up getting ripped off of $15,000 and had nothing to show for it. People had fronted me a bunch of money. They wanted their drugs or they wanted their money, and I didn't have either. There was just constant people following me. They were wanting to do bad things to me. That one really shook me to the core. I think that was the wake-up call. So I went home. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I went home. I was still living with my parents at the time. Went and sat on my bed, and I just simply said, Lord, there you are who you say you are. You know what's happened. And I need some help. And I left it there. And it was a week to the day after that prayer. A friend of mine that I hadn't seen since 6th grade, he called me up and offered me a job if I would come down to Florida. I asked him, I was like, well, it's been so long, how did you find my number? He says, to be completely honest with you, Dave, I have no clue. It just popped into my head. But are you interested? I don't have enough money to get down there, but let me talk to my parents and I'll get back to you. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that was what I needed to do. So I went and talked to my parents and had told them enough of what was going on in my life to let them know that this was something that I needed to do. So they gave me their car keys, they took mine, and they gave me a couple $100 and get on your way. It was like every half hour, every hour, I was either stopping to go to the bathroom or stopping to go to puke or doing both. I'd get back on the road, heading back home, and my phone would ring. People I hadn't even talked to in years were calling me up. My sister, my parents, my aunt, my uncle, people I didn't even know had my phone number were calling. Hey, what are you doing right now? Coming back from wherever it was that I was. No, Dave. No, you need to turn back around and keep on heading in that other direction. You need to get to your destination. They had no clue where I was going, what I was doing. They had no clue. So I'd turn my car around and keep on heading. And I was just finding my way in Georgia. And my car overheated. And I pulled off the side of the road, and lo and behold, if there wasn't a car dealership there, and some guy at the front door was just locking up. He turned around and he goes, you need some help, young man, don't you? Well, yeah, I do. Smoke and everything's flying from my radiator. I'll make a couple phone calls and see what we can do. I went to the bathroom, got a drink of water, and come back, and he said, well, I made a couple phone calls and I got some mechanics on the way. You need something to eat. Yeah, that'd be nice. Reaches in his pocket, hands me his credit card, hands me his car keys, and he says, why don't you go down the road and get yourself something to eat? How can I take your credit card and your car keys to go? You don't even know me. No, you need to go do that. Okay, so I left and come back, had a full belly. Says, well, we're all set. The car's all set. He said, this morning I was praying, and that God told me that I was going to be able to bless somebody, and I was going to be able to help somebody today. And I had gone all day waiting and praying, help me not to miss this opportunity. When I heard your car come when I was locking the door, I knew you were the chance that I had. He said, you need some more money, don't you? Reaches in his wallet and gave me every dollar he had in his wallet. I had no money. I had just spent the last dollar that I had on gas. I was completely blown away and flabbergasted, and I knew right then and there that that was God that was helping me, and I knew that I was fighting a spiritual battle to get down to Florida. So I made my way back down to Florida and continued working down there. So now I'm 2,000 miles away from home, 24 years old. Got a couple guys that I hadn't seen in 13, 14 years. Everything that's familiar with me is ripped away. Lord, what'd you bring me down here for? So I found a church and started going to church. Went up front a few times for prayer. Started seeking counsel from one of the guys. I just wasn't getting anywhere. Wasn't figuring anything out. It was probably 3 or 4 months had gone by. My parents come down to my apartment, spent the weekend with me. I was about to get in my truck and my dad yells at me across the parking lot. He goes, "Hey!" So I whipped around. He says, "You need to forgive." Man, it was like a Mack truck had run me right over. He says, "Dave, you need to forgive." I said, "What do you mean I need to forgive?" He says, "Think about it." And he continued rattling off other instances where I had never forgiven. And I had held on to that grudge. There was bitterness, and there was anger, and there was hurt, and there was resentment. So I went home that day, and I sat down on my couch, and I was like, well, the old man's right. I think he's onto something. But how do you forgive? What does that mean? Well, lo and behold, if there wasn't a bookstore that was next door to my apartment, I had no TV or anything. I had nothing better to do. I hate reading. So I went next door, and it just so happened that it was a Christian bookstore. So I went and found myself a book on forgiveness and started learning how to forgive and what it actually meant to forgive. And the best spot to start was with myself. You can forgive everybody you want to, but you need to be able to forgive yourself. And once I started forgiving people and forgiving certain instances and forgiving myself, it was like 1,000 pounds had been lifted off my shoulders. And all of a sudden, good things started happening. All of a sudden, I wasn't angry. All of a sudden, I wasn't bitter anymore. Where there used to be anger, there was love. Where there used to be resentment, there was grace. I couldn't help but love people and want to help people. Where before I had wanted to run them off the road or put my fist through their face. We all struggle with things, and I think that a lot of it revolves around forgiveness. And if we could just forgive, the world would be a better place. And I think we all need to forgive ourselves. My name is Dave Bremer, and this is my story.